Hi everybody, it's Jim Siegel for Spaceflight Insider. Do you recognize this building? Well, maybe there's no single more recognizable aspect in the history of the American space program than this building, the Vehicle Assembly Building, known as the VAB, at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It was completed in 1966. Think about that. 53 years ago. 53! And it was designed to assemble large pre-manufactured components of the giant Saturn V rocket, one on top of the other, that would take Americans to the moon in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Later, it was used for a number of other missions, including the Space Shuttle program. That was 135 launches of the Space Shuttle. But all of those have been NASA programs, NASA. So as part of the initiative to encourage commercial use of the Kennedy Space Center, and particularly the Vehicle Assembly Building, NASA announced in 2015 that it would accept proposals from commercial companies to use the Vehicle Assembly Building. So fast forward to 2019. On August 16th, NASA formalized an agreement with Northrop Grumman to use High Bay No. 2 of the Vehicle Assembly Building. Kent Rominger, a 5-time shuttle astronaut and now Vice President of Business Development at Northrop Grumman, was among the dignitaries on hand. After thanking NASA for accepting them as a partner at Kennedy Space Center, he described a few of the details of its 3-stage design. The first 2 stages of the OmegA rocket being solid propulsion, with the option of adding up to 8 strap-on boosters, depending upon the payload and its destination. The event included a traditional ribbon cutting featuring Bob Cabana from NASA, Mr. Rominger in the center, and Colonel Thomas St. Marie of the Air Force's 45th Space Wing. In case you're wondering, that's not the actual rocket in the background. OmegA actually stands about 200 feet tall, slightly shorter than a Falcon 9, and slightly taller than an Atlas V. So Northrop Grumman will assemble and test its new OmegA rocket in High Bay No. 2 prior to transporting and launching that rocket from Launch Complex 39B. They thus become the first commercial tenant of the Vehicle Assembly Building. Now you may be saying to yourself, well, wait a minute now, there's at least 2 other commercial companies, SpaceX and United Launch Alliance, that have long launched from the Kennedy Space Center and the nearby Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. Well, that's true, but they built their own assembly buildings. Here's the United Launch Alliance assembly building near Space Launch Complex 41 at the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. And SpaceX built horizontal assembly buildings next to Space Launch Complex 40 and Launch Complex 39 at the Kennedy Space Center. So again, Northrop Grumman becomes the first commercial company to use the iconic Vehicle Assembly Building. But Northrop Grumman is not a newcomer to the space program and space rockets. They are a giant defense and aerospace company. Their new OmegA rocket joins their family of other rockets, most of which are launched outside of Central Florida. OmegA comes in 2 versions, a medium and a heavy version, and competes with rockets from SpaceX, United Launch Alliance, and others. OmegA will also use another massive piece of NASA property, Mobile Launch Platform number 3, being retrofitted here in the shadow of the Vehicle Assembly Building. So beginning in 2021, you'll see coverage of OmegA launches here at Spaceflight Insider. In the meantime, though, we will be keeping you up to date as Northrop Grumman prepares for that launch. In fact, Mike Howard just posted his own photos and story related to this event on our website. And Jason Ryan has a 2016 story about negotiations to use the vehicle assembly building. So stay connected with us, both on our social media sites as well as on our website, spaceflightinsider.com, for the inside line on all things space. So, for my Spaceflight Insider colleagues, this is Jim Siegel signing off for now. So long.